back to Yerushalmi Terumot. We are Nun Vav Amud Beis. The share you can find it on Torah Anytime. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Kol HaLashon, which means the Chus for Klal Yisrael. Rabbi Vav b'Shem Rabbi Yochanan. We're talking about a Zah who eats Truma. Hamgameya Chaim shel Truma, one who swallows or puts in his mouth vinegar of truma intentionally. Now it's not the way you eat it. Like he gets lashes. Rabbi Shem Rabbi Yochanan Hakaisei schita, one who eats wheat, raw wheat, shel truma, intentionally, even though that's not the way of eating. Like he gets lashes. It's not the usual way to eat it. Usually you grind it, you make a flour out of it. But you get lashes. Kasisa is also called achila.
Right? What? That's something that is done.
No, not for eating. No. Well, that's not the normal way. It's not the derech. No. Medicinal might be an exception, but I don't know if it's about chaimas actually, but no. Rabbi Vav shel truma like it. Tani rulant. Gamea chaimetz shel truma. So one who swallows or sort of slushes around in his mouth, you might want to say, or it could be swallowing as well, the vinegar of truma. If he does it for shogeg, meshalem es hakaren, ve'enem meshalem es hachomish. You don't have to pay the fifth, because this brisa says no, it's not the way of eating. It's not included in achila. And I close this chitza shel truma, meshalem es hakaren. You chew the wheat, you pay the karen, ve'enem meshalem es hachomish. You don't have to pay the fifth. It's not the way to eat it. But Rebbe argues. Rebbe says ani omer. Shemishalem keren v'chaymish. You have to pay the keren and you have to pay the fifth. Rabbi Yirmi and Shem Rabbi Yirmi. Why do Chacham agree to Rabbi? Megamea chaymish shel truma achar tzibur. According to this lashon, if you swallow the vinegar after you've eaten it in your meal, which you dipped bread in it, so you're using it after you've had it in your meal. Shemishalem keren v'chaymish. You pay keren and the chaymish. Chaymetz, the one which you have after you've already eaten it in your meal, it calms you down and doesn't do damage. So it's included in Eichel, if you're chayv a chaymesh, like anyone who eats truma b'shogeg. But if you're having the vinegar not after you're dipping, then the chachamim argue and they say no, it's mazig, and although it might restore your soul, but it's not really a proper way of eating, it's not called Eichel, and therefore you're potter. So they say it makes a difference if you're having the vinegar after the meal or before. Now we've learned that if you eat truma tahira or truma tamea b'shogeg, you have to pay keren v'chomesh. Now, what sort of payments are you making? So let's say you ate truma, which is tameh. So you've got to pay the principal back. So what do you have to pay back? So tiny we've learned, achol truma tamea, you ate truma tamea by mistake, you have to pay the principal. Mishalem chulin tahirin, you have to pay the principal and the fifth with tahar chulin. You can't pay with truma tamea. You have to pay with tahar chulin.
Even though you don't have firewood.
It's what? Well, truma tamea, exactly, that's the point. Truma tamea, you're right. What was it worth? A bit of wood. But nevertheless, you have to pay, according to this brisa, you have to pay chulin, which is tahar. Vim shidam lo chulin tamein, if you pay chulin food which was tamei yasa, you fulfill your duty. Rav Nasan, he says, Sumchas, he says, if you paid Paris tamein b'shogeg, if you didn't know that you're paying tamei, fair enough. Masha asa asa. Then what's done is done. But amazing, if you knew what you were doing, you knew it's tamei, Lai asa klum. It's not a valid payment. You have to go and pay again. Peres chulin, which is tahor. So this opinion says it's not valid if you paid with tamei stuff. Now it sounds like, what does it mean it's not valid? It's not a payment. So what? Does it become truma? Does it go back to the giver? Does it go straight back? And then you have to pay peres chulin tahirin? That could be some way, some learn like that. But according to that, now if the Chachamim can't remove something from the Torah, they can't uproot something for their own takonas. Now here, the Torah allows you to pay any payments. Let's say you eat truma tamea, right? The Torah allows you to make any payments. And it becomes the money of the Cohen. Let's say he goes and betroths a wife with that money. She is married to him, right? She's proper ish. But now the Chachamim come along and say, wait for it, they say, wait a minute, we don't think you've done a valid payment. Therefore what? So the money the Cohen received, he's not received it. So meanwhile he was Makadosh a woman with it, and the Chachamim are saying that woman that you betrothed is no longer betrothed to you, because we took away the power of that Kedushin because that money should not have been given to you. Now, do the Chachamim go so far that, they can remove this Eishes Ish? His wife been out Torah and they come along and say it's not a wife at all? Is that what happens? So some want to say they don't go so far. They say the money belongs to the Cohen. It doesn't go back to the giver. But the guy has to give again. Yeah? He still has to give again, but it still remains belonging to the property of the Cohen. Not that it's not a payment at all. It does belong to the Cohen, but you have to go and pay again, Cholin, which is Tahar. Okay. We are up to... we're up to here, yeah? Tamon Tanina. We've learnt another din. This is about separating Truma from fruit which is Tameh on behalf of fruit which is Tahar, and we're going to compare it to our previous discussion. Tamon Tanina. So we've learnt in the Mishnah on Daf base. Ein Tabin min Tameh ala Tahar. You can't separate Truma ideally from Peres which are Tameh for Peres which are Tahar. And if you did, the Shogeg is valid. If you do it B'mezid, it's not valid. And you have to go and do it again. Tani, then we got another opinion. Tani v'shem Rabbi Yossi. In Torah min Tameh ala Tahar. This opinion says, look, Tameh for Tahar, whether Shogeg or Mezid, B'shog Mezid, whatever's done is done. So even Mezid is done is valid. Masha asa asui. You have corrected your fruit, even though you separated it with Tameh fruit. So Rabbi Yossi argues on the Tana of the Mishnah, who says it's not effective if it was B'mezid. He says it is effective. Now we're going to look at this argument with the din of Tameh al Tahar, B'mezid, and the various machlokes we had about if you pay back, where you eat something and you pay back chulin, which is Tameh. So a similar question. So Asid Yechida Dahacha, the individual in our case, which is Renas in the name of Sumchos, who holds if you pay Peres Tameh is not valid, that is Kastaba the Taman. That's like the Tana mentioned Stam, that's the Tana of the Mishnah who held, if you separate Tameh for Tahar, is not valid. V'chida the Taman, the individual mentioned there, which is Rabbi Yossi, who holds that taking Truma Tameh for Tahar is valid, is Kistaba Dahacha. It's like the Tana here mentioned Stam, that's the Tana Kam of the Brisa who holds, as though Peres Tameh, even intentionally, it's a valid payment. Now, we learned in the Mishnah about Peres of Chulin, where you pay if you ate Truma b'Shogeg. He says, V'hei nasin Truma. So think about it. You ate Truma b'Shogeg, here's the Chulin that you have to pay over, right? And that's Tahar. It becomes Truma. Yeah, nasin Truma. And if you go and ate that, the Zar, then the Chulin, this new Chulin which became Truma, he has to pay for that. Tashlumin Truma, he has to pay Karen B'chomesh on that. Hey Chavida. So how are we going to do this? You're Chulin, this Lemaisa. I mean, is it Truma or not? Reb Zira of Shem Rachanina, Tashlumi Truma, Harein Truma L'chol Dava. Yes, when you make repayments because you ate Truma, it's Truma in every aspect. Ela Shagidu Le'en, as opposed to Truma, any growth from it is considered Chulin, not Truma. Right? Growths of Truma are Truma. Growths of Chulin are not Truma. So growth of this Tashlumin is not Truma. Now, Gidulei Truma, Harein Chulin L'chol Dava. Gidulei Truma is really Chulin, Ela Shasurin L'zarim, but it's forbidden for the Zar to eat it like Truma. Oh, Rabbi, we've learned two dinim, which from Zero Paskin. The first din, Tashlumei Truma, when you're paying back for Truma, Harein Truma L'chol Dava. We've learned, the Tanina, we've learned, Eina Meshalem, you don't have to pay the Keren B'chomesh with Truma. You cannot pay it with Truma. You have to pay it with Chulin. And a Chulin Mesukadim. V'hei nasin Truma. They become Truma. And also, we said the growth of Truma normally is like Truma, but growth of Tashlumin is Chulin. Is like Chulin. So there's Ninan, we've learned Gidulei Truma. Growth of Truma is like Truma. But growth of Truma proper is like Truma. Gidulei Tashlumin Chulin. But growth of Tashlumin, of payments for Truma, has got a din like Chulin, but a Zar can't eat it. Now the first din, that Gidulei Truma is Chulin in every aspect. The Taninan we've learned, this is about a field where you sow Truma there, and the growths of Truma. You have to give all the gleanings and the gifts to the poor. But Aniyah Yisrael, Aniyah Cohen, and Malaktin, and all the matanos can be collected by the poor, like Leket Shikha Peah. So Gidulei Truma is like Chulin. Because Chulin, remember, Truma doesn't have any requirements to separate Leket from Truma, right? So growth of Truma has got a din like Chulin, and therefore you have to give these matanos. But then it says, Ela Shasurin Lazarim, Yisrael can't eat it. We learned the Tanina, we've learned, but Aniyah Yisrael, what are the Aniyim of the poor Israelites? They're allowed to collect it, but they can't eat it. They can sell it for the value of Truma, and the money belongs to them. So now, what is this? This is dealing about fruit given to a Cohen as payments, tashlumin, for eating Truma b'shogeg. He says, Ein mishamin mehen karen b'chomesh. You can't pay karen b'chomesh on other Truma because it becomes Truma. You can't use Truma to pay for tashlumin for other Truma, right? You can't use Truma to pay for other Truma. So this, you use this, you gave it to a Cohen because you ate his Truma. This tashlumin, you can't use it for other stuff. Other stuff of other Truma you ate. You can't use this fruit of Truma for other tashlumin. And if Yisrael eats them b'shogeg, you don't have to pay, according to this opinion, you don't have to pay karen b'chomesh to the Cohen. Just like Truma is not chayav chala, these are not chayav chala. Any yadayim, what's for yom, posting bahen. And the hands don't passel peres of tashlumi Truma and passel them by touching them. Just like hands don't passel chulin, so they don't passel tashlumi Truma either. Okay. It says here in the notes, this Brisa was talking about a case where chulin was separated for tashlumi Truma, but it's not yet been given to the Cohen. You hear that? They're talking about tashlumi Truma, you've not given it to the Cohen yet. And as long as it's not been given to the Cohen, it's not got proper Kedushas Truma. Therefore, if Yisrael eats it, b'shogeg, he doesn't have to pay a fifth on it, because he didn't eat proper Truma Gemura. He does have to pay the Keren, because he's eaten the Keren. Okay? When the Brisa says you don't pay Keren b'chomesh, it's lav dafka. Because of the previous din, which includes Keren, we also use the Lashon here. Basically, it's saying you only pay, you don't pay the Keren as tashlumi Truma. It's not proper Truma yet. You hear that? You've not given it to the Kohen yet. So there's no tashlumin din in here. There's just normal money you have to pay, the loss that you caused. Okay? Right. Let's carry on. With Shimon Rabbi Yossi, they're machmir about Peres Tashlumi Truma Moideba. They agree to these leniencies that we mentioned about Peres Tashlumi Truma. So this, you set aside, you haven't given it to the Kohen yet. We're saying it's potter from Chala, and your hands don't pass the lips, whatever it is. Imrasa Kohen Limcha. Now let's say the Kohen says, you don't have to pay me back. It's okay, you ate my Truma, you don't have to pay me back. Eina Meichel, he cannot say no. Now this did, he can't be Meichel, he's only Loi Hifrish, when the Yisrael never yet separated the fruit for Tashlumin. So the Kohen can't be Meichel on the Chiyuv. The Yisrael has to separate Chulin to pay back. Once he's separated the Chulin, the Kohen can say, it's okay, I don't need to receive it. So and then the Zar can take the fruit for himself. So at that point, if the Kohen says, I don't want it, it only becomes Truma, proper Truma, really, when the Kohen receives it. Not when you've separated it. Now, when is Chala Chayev? When is that Kedushas Truma on Tashlumin that you're Chayev B'shogeg if you ate it? Hifrish, if you separated it, Truma, for you ate B'shogeg, V'achach, and then, before you gave it to the Kohen Achal, you ate it. So you've separated it and eaten it before you've given it. That is in Machlokas, Plukta Rabbi Lazar of Shimon. The Tani learned in a Brisa, but not in the Kodesh HaKodesh. Tashlumin of Truma becomes Kodesh, it becomes Truma. But Nasan as HaKodesh, Matanasa, giving it over Mekadashta makes it holy, L'chayv Alav Zacham, to say you have to pay the fifth. Prishasai, setting it aside before giving to the Kohen, Mekadashta, Milaycha B'Truma, then it makes it holy that the Zor can't eat it like Truma. But if he ate it b'shogeg, he doesn't have to pay karen b'chomesh. Divrei Rebbe, that's Rebbe's view. So Rebbe's view is until you've given it, you don't have to pay karen b'chomesh. Just pay the normal damages for eating it. He says, when you separate it, even at that point, you're chayav karen b'chomesh. But apart from the fact, Melechel the Truma. So, apart from the fact that you can't eat it, right, like Truma. So according to Rebbe, eating the Truma is given to the Cohen that's Karen B'Chomesh, but not if it's just been separated. And according to Rav Shimon, as soon as you separate it and then you eat it, you're Chayav Karen B'Chomesh. Okay? Now, now what happens? A Yisrael eats Truma and the Cohen is Michael. So a Zah, let's say Yisrael steals Truma from a Cohen. Or Machal, and the Cohen gives Michael. And then the Yisrael eats the Truma B'Shogeg. Tiflug, there's a Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Shlokish. There's Palgun, we got Machlokes. Gazal, if someone steals fruits of Truma, Mishal Avi Imai Cohen, from his grandfather, who is a Cohen. And then the grandfather dies, and the grandson inherits everything, including this Truma. And then he eats it B'Shogeg. You hear that? He stole it, then he inherited it, then he ate it B'Shogeg. Rabbi Yochanan he says you have to give fruit of the amount to one of the Kohanim. No, he can hold it up for himself. He doesn't have to give it to one of the Kohanim. And similarly, in our case, where Zah stole Truma from a Kohen and Michael the Kohen on the Gzela, and then the Zah ate the Truma B'Shogeg, according to Rabbi Yochanan, he has to give the person Shlumin to one of the Kohanim. But for Shlokish, he can hold it for himself. Okay? It's similar to Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Shlokish. Zah stole Truma from a Kohen, and the time when he eats it, B'Shogeg, he was the Bala Peres. Either he inherited it, or the Kohen was Michael. The din is the same. According to everyone, he has to separate it. Rabbi Yochanan says you have to give it to Kohen, like Hashavas Gezela. And according to Shlokish, he can hold it for himself, and he can sell it to Kohanim. It's made Truma, and he can sell it. He might not be able to eat it, but he can sell it to Kohanim and get the money for it. Amar Rav Yonah. Now we bring a proof, or a raya, a taina, that Rish Lakish said to Rav Yochanan to support his view. Amar Rav Yonah. This is what he said. Adata, according to you, like Zah eats Truma for his grandfather, who's a Cohen, and he inherits it. He ate it B'Shogeg. The tema you want to say, Meshalim L'Shev, you have to pay some money to some of the Kohanim. He says, V'atzaninam, but we've learned, Gana Trumas Hegdash Ba'achala, if you stole Hegdash, Truma of Hegdash, and you ate it B'Shogeg, Meshalim Shnei Chumshin V'Keren. Apart from the payment of Keren to Hegdash, you have to pay 2/5, one for eating Truma B'Shogeg, and one because of Me'ila B'Hegdash. Now, according to you, if you steal Truma and you inherit it and you eat it B'Shogeg, you have to pay to a Kohen, then the Mishnah should have added on that if the Ganav made a full shvua and he lied, and is chayav to pay an additional 5th, Yishalem Shloisha, he'd have to pay 3/5. One to Cohen, one to Hegdash rather, and one for Meila, and one for the Kohanim. He could have added a third one for him swearing against the Kohanim, saying it doesn't belong to them or whatever. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yochanan, the Torah says, if you eat B'Shogeg, you have to pay Keren B'Chomesh. Yasa B'Yidei Gezela. You fulfill any duty you have, you're chayav because of your theft. So the same thing, if a Zah steals Trumas Hegdash and eats it B'Shogeg, you pay Keren B'Chomesh because of Truma B'Shogeg, and you're covered with what? With what you should be chayav because of your theft. Amr of Zira Basi, Tate Mili Amrin, B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan. These are two things they say over the name of Yochanan. Let's not an Amrin man. But you're not saying where they learned from. The two things are said in the name of Yochanan, but we don't know where you're getting them from. He says here, Mehen is short for Min Hon. So where are you getting them from? Right? Now Razir is going to explain. So Rabbi Yochanan said, now one of the things he said was, look, the Torah says if you steal Truma from a Kohen, you eat it B'Shogeg, you pay Keren B'Chomesh because of eating the Truma, Yatsi Yidei Gezela, and you fulfill your duty, anything because of your theft. But you don't say where you learned this from. Markadun, what's the source for this? So Yabramasi answered, it says when you pay back Truma, you give him the Kodesh, you give him. Once you've given him the Keren and Chomesh of the Truma, you've fulfilled any theft liabilities. And another din of Rabbi Yochanan, Atan Amrin, he said, Rabbi Yochanan, this is about Paraduma. But Makam Shchitasa, the place where they shech the cow, Sham Tehet Shreivasa, that's where it should be burnt. Again, but there's Atan Amrin, where do you get it from? Margaret, what's the source for this? The Torah says you burn the para la'enov as oirav as pesarav as dama al pirsha yisrael ma tramina. What do we get from that? The wording we dash at makam prishasa where you mechaim, where you separate it when it's alive, right? Where it's slaughtered, sham teisrei fasa. That's where it should be burnt. Now we come back to Machlekes Rav Yochanan Shlokish, Azar stealing truma from his grandfather the Cohen, and then he inherits it, and he ate b'shogeg. Now the din of the Rav Yochanan, that you have to give that amount to one of the Kohanim, that is Kerebi. That's like Rebbe who holds that Pez Tashlumin don't become holy with Kedushas Truma until you give it to a Kohen. And that's why Rav Yochanan is Mechayev the thief, you have to pay a Tashlumin to the Kohen, right? And then he fulfills his duty. But according to the din of Reish Lakish, that what? You're allowed to hold the fruit for yourself. You don't have to give it to anyone. That must be Kulas Rav Shimon who holds that Tashlumin is holy straight away as soon as you separate it. Therefore, Rav Shimon ben Lakish can pasken. If you stole truma from your grandfather and you inherited it and you ate it b'shogeg, you can keep the fruit for yourself. You don't have to give it to a Kohen, and you fulfill your duty with that. Because as soon as you separated it, it had Kedushas Truma. In this situation, you've inherited the Truma before you ate it, so you have fulfilled your Tashlumin. Even if you're going to hold Reish Lakish Rebbe, even if he holds like Rebbe, who holds Pez Tashlumin don't become holy until you give it to a Kohen, he can still say that if you stole Truma from the grandfather, and you inherited it, and you ate it b'shogeg, you can hold it for yourself. You don't have to give it to a Kohen. You fulfill your duty, because the words of Rebbe were said, that this was providing, we're talking about payments where you ate Truma b'shogeg, you have to give a Tashlumin to the Kohen. In this situation, Rebbe holds, the parents don't become holy Kedushas Truma until you give it to a Kohen. But something which is Tashlumin, he inherited Truma. He ate it b'shogeg. He doesn't have to give it to a Kohen. So according to Reish Lakish, if Rebbe will agree, the parents become holy Kedushas Truma as soon as you separate them, and therefore he's fulfilled his duty with Tashlumin. He can keep it for himself. He separated it, that's as far as he has to go. And these words, which we're going to say about Petach HaMoed, I'll fit it in like this. It says, Hifrish, if you set aside a sheep, a lamb, for your pigeon Petach HaMoed, right, firstborn donkey, or mace, and the seh dies before you give it to the Kohen, have you fulfilled your duty or not? You set aside the lamb, and the lamb went and died before the ceremony. Rebbe Lezer says, you have to replace it. Just like a father has a bechor, he has to pay the 5 selaim shalaben. If they got lost before they got to the Kohen, he has to replace it. But so you don't have to replace the seh. Ella, or the pidyon abed money, or whatever. Ella, kepidyon masasheni. It's like masasheni, if it got lost, you don't have to replace it. Now the argument about Petach HaMoed is like Machlekes Rebbe and Rav Shimon with Tashlumei Truma. According to Rebbe, right, that doesn't cause, the Hafrosha doesn't cause it to be holy until it goes to the Kohen. And that's like Rebbe Lezer who holds setting the lamb aside is not enough until it's given to the Kohen. And Rebbe Lezer Shimon who holds separating Tashlumei Truma causes it to be holy like Kedushas Truma, that's like the Chachamim who holds that Hafrosha Saseh, that itself causes the Pidyon Petach HaMoed. Now the Gemara actually finishes its proof according to Rabbi Bun Bachia. It brings a brisa which explains Rabbi Lezer's view. Rabbi Lezer agrees. Right, separating the set doesn't make it the pidyon chal until it goes to the Kohen. But pitrei chamoros should not fly if he got donkeys from Yisrael, inherited it b'beis aviyima a Kohen from his grandfather the Kohen. That Yisrael has to separate a seh for every donkey. But he's allowed to hold it for himself. He doesn't have to give it to Kohen. As soon as he separated it, the pidyon is chal. And now, if the seh dies, you don't have to replace it. So the same thing, even Rebbe, who holds that Hafrosha is not usually enough for it to be holy with Kedushas Truma. It's got to go to the Kohen, but he agrees in a situation of a Zoh, who inherited Truma, and he ate it b'shogeg. And according to Reish Lakish, he doesn't have to pay Tashlumin to a Kohen. So the prayers Tashlumin become holy with Kedushas Truma as soon as he separates it, and he has fulfilled his duty with that. Okay, now we bring a brisa how Yisrael should pay truma for eating truma b'shogeg. So achal trumas chaver. Yisrael ate the truma of a Cohen who's a chaver, who's an expert in all the halachas. Now, mishalem lechaver, you can pay the tashlumim to the chaver. If you ate trumas amaretz by mistake, what should you give the amaretz? Mishalem, you pay tashlumim amaretz. Now, wait a minute. You're giving him truma, chulin, loidim samaisa taraisav lamaretz. You're giving truma to hira to an amaretz. How can you do that? Chulin tahar, which you give to a kohen for tashlumei truma, becomes truma. So you're giving truma to hira to an amaretz. How can you do that? So what do you do? Nice and stehen. You pay two payments, a keren and a chomesh, the kohen chaver, so kohen chaver. And the Kohen Chaver noitel to me'achzman, he takes the money of the value of one of them, it's one of the principles, and he gives the money, and the Kohen Ha'aretz. That he gives to the Kohen Ha'aretz, the truma, whose truma was eaten. And the second payment, that's the fifth, the Kohen Chaver can hold it for himself, and doesn't have to give that value to the Kohen Ha'aretz. So basically the principle, you go give to a Kohen, and the Kohen will give the value of it to an Ha'aretz. Okay, but we can't give truma to Ha'aretz and Ha'aretz. That fits in only according to the one who says Hafrashasai, separating it enough before giving to the Kohen, Mekadashtai is enough to give it proper Kedushas Truma. Therefore the Hafrasha causes the parents to become holy Kedushas Truma. So if a Zar ate Trumas Kohen Ha'aretz b'shogeg, he can give the parents that he separated Tashlumin for Kohen Chaver. The Kohen Chaver gives to the Kohen the value of the Keren, and you fulfill your duty. But according to the one who says Matanasa, it's only when you give it, Mikadashta, that's when the Kedushas Truma comes about. But like then in this situation where you're not giving the Tashlumin to the Kohen Ha'aretz, because his Truma can be eaten, Ein Tzarech Zechia. So whatever happens, surely you will need someone else to acquire it, the fruit, for the Kohen Ha'aretz. Yeah, according to the one who says it's only holy when you give it, then you're going to need someone else, right? Someone who we do trust, someone who can eat the truma, and we'll need someone else to acquire it for the Kohen Ha'aretz. We can't give truma to hira to the Kohen Ha'aretz. We'll need someone else to acquire it. V'shlokish answered back. B'mezakeh, you know what? This did. The Zar can be mezakeh, the fruit, tashlumin, to a Kohen Ha'aretz, alidei acher. You can give it to the Zar, to the Ha'aretz, through someone else acquiring it for him, and therefore the fruit becomes Kedushas Truma. It's as if it's reached the Kohen Ha'aretz, and through that you fulfill your duty of giving it, and after that the Kohen Chaver takes it for himself, and he gives a value to the Kohen Ha'aretz, the value of it. Okay? Bas Yisrael Sha'achla Truma. Now, a Jewish woman ate Truma b'shogeg, and then she marries a Kohen. Right? If she ate Truma the Kohen didn't acquire, she has to pay Kohen b'chomesh, and she can keep the money for herself. So this is about a situation. Imagine a Bas Yisrael eats Truma b'shogeg, then she marries a Kohen. She's not yet paid the Kohen chomesh yet, now she's divorced. She can't receive Truma now. What's the din? Does he have a right to claim from the Kohen who receives the Tashlumin money instead? Or maybe she has to give him the payers without money. Does she get the money back or what? Isachami, come and see, because Ilu Hayallah, if, let's say, Ashes Cohen, before she married the Cohen, if she had Kama Masros, like Paris Maser, which has not yet been given to a Levi, and then she's gone and Paris Maser, which a Levi has to get. She marries a Cohen, she acquires it. Because Kohenim could also eat Maser, remember that, yeah? Kohenim could eat Maser. So if that's the case, Ilu Hayallah Kama Masros, if she had some maestros before, and then she marries a Kohen, and she acquires the maestros, Shem, are you going to tell me after she's divorced, Eilan Shalah, they're not hers? We can't say that. She acquired the maestros while she was married. They remain hers. So the same thing we can say in our situation. As soon as she marries a Kohen, she acquired the payers to separate for Tashlumin. If afterwards she gets divorced, she's not lost her right to these payers, and she has the right to claim from the Kohen who's receiving Tashlumin money in its place. So the Gemara answers, Tamam, in that situation, Maisris Musuyomin, the fruits of Maisris in her domain are singled out. We know what we're talking about. So therefore she acquires them while she's married to the Cohen, and after she's divorced, they remain hers. But in our situation, Truma Eina Musuyemes, the pairs Tashlumin, which are going to have Kedushas Truma, are not finite. We don't know what they are. We still have a question. Has she got a zechus to go and claim it from the Cohen, who's receiving the Tashlumin, he's receiving money, can she get money off him? Or maybe she has to give him the fruit without any money. Now, the one answers, Ma Domila, what situation would be the same to our case? He says to compare it to a case where a woman had, before she got married to a Cohen, she had Pitre Chamoros. She had donkeys that needed redeeming, right? The wife of your dreams, she's got a donkey farm, right? She's got Pitre Chamoros, which have not been redeemed. And then she marries a Cohen. So the din is that she needs to redeem them. But she's allowed to take the ser, the lamb, for herself. Before she redeems them, she gets divorced. The Cohen says, I've had enough of these donkeys, right? She gets divorced. In this situation, he is the one who's... so you have to redeem these donkeys, and she's allowed to take the ser for herself because she acquired it while she was married to the Cohen. Once she had the rights then to keep the ser for herself, she keeps that even though she's divorced. So here we can learn to our case as well. While she's married to the Cohen, she's entitled to the Peres Truma that's going to be separated for the Tashlumin, and even if they didn't separate it till after she got divorced, she has a right to claim from the Cohen who receives the fruit Tashlumin. She can get money in its place. Okay, fine. I think we'll stop here today, Rabbi Say. Okay.